Good morning, everybody. It is so lovely to be with you today. My name is Rachel Callander. I'm joining you from Australia, so if you're detecting an accent, it's true. I'm originally from New Zealand, and I moved to Australia about 6 years ago because I met a boy. Classic story of meet a boy, change your life, and change countries. I'm coming to you today. This is going to be quite a gentle session, an easing in session. I may not blow your socks off, but I appreciate your welcome. Thank you so much, Rachel. I don't have experience with muscular dystrophy Duchenne, but I did meet Pat a few years ago and we became fast friends. And I saw in her a kindred spirit, someone with incredible passion and vision. And so whenever she says, Rachel, can you come and do a thing for us? I say, yes, when is it? I'll be there. You know, she's that kind of person. And this community speaks volumes to the vision and the passion that she has. This is a very, very special community to be part of, even though it was probably not what you wanted, not what you had planned, not what you expected, but you find yourself here in a community that maybe you never wanted to be part of, but here you are. I'm going to speak to you from a parent perspective though, and an artist perspective, and you'll hear more of that in my talk tomorrow when I go into more of that story. But I always wanted to be an artist, so I went to art school when I was graduated from high school, and I always found that my work was created from a similar theme, and that was the theme of finding beauty in brokenness. I was drawn to thinkers like Viktor Frankl and Khalil Gibran, who were fascinated by the idea of finding joy and suffering and holding those two things in tension, which I'm assuming is exactly where you find yourself at the moment. You have a son, a child who you love dearly, and now there's this tension that you're holding grief and sadness and pain. And I experienced that myself firsthand when I had a little daughter, Evie, who was born with a very rare chromosome condition, so rare that the doctors didn't even have a name for it. And I remember I'd given birth to this little daughter, and a few hours later we tried to feed her and she couldn't latch. She had a really small mouth, and as we fed her by syringe, she just kind of stopped breathing, turned a bit blue, and the nurse just grabbed her and ran out the door with her. And then I didn't see her or hear about how things were going with her until the next morning. And so there's a period of time where there's fear and there's uncertainty and there's overwhelm and complete isolation, you know, in a new environment and scary words. Because I remember the first words that the doctors said in the morning after she was born. They said, look, we've done some tests overnight on Evie, and we're really concerned about her. We think she has a condition that is incompatible with life. It's a rare chromosome condition. We think it's trisomy 18 or Edwards syndrome. I never heard the word trisomy before, and my pediatrician was English, and so he had an accent, and I appreciate it's tricky to know what someone's saying when they have an accent. You can't quite grasp onto the words. And I remember at the time I was so overwhelmed and kind of, you know, you're in shock, disbelief. And then the next words were, you know, this condition is incompatible with life. And if she does survive, which is highly unlikely, she'll have severe mental retardation. She has multiple ventricular septal defects. She's got congenital abnormalities and skeletal abnormalities. And I just remember feeling this crushing weight of, but my daughter she's here and she's beautiful. You know, the things that I felt about her were in such contrast to the words that were being used over my child. And while that was it's appropriate for a diagnosis, I think the more these words, these almost inhuman, dehumanizing, deficit-focused words can do a lot of damage. And you might have already experienced some of these words in your diagnosis process. I remember those words, you know, retarded and incompatible with life. They hurt more than the diagnosis itself because it felt like they weren't describing a human being anymore. And I remember as Evie grew, I realized how much I just found her fascinating. She was an incredibly beautiful, charming little being, little human, a new soul in the world. And I saw her as having so much potential in this life. And the things that she was teaching me as a mother and those around her were really quite profound. And I remember a moment where she was around 2 years old, and I had this thought that she was experiencing the world differently to other people. Like the way that she responded to environments, especially ones where there were any electric sliding doors, or if we drove under a lot of electrical pylons, she'd just start crying out of nowhere. And then she'd stop crying, and it was sort of bizarre because I noticed this about her, and I thought, oh, maybe she's got, you know, an electromagnetic sensitivity that's completely unique to her. And so then I sort of started saying that she had superpowers, you know, like a baby Magneto kind of thing. And this idea was the beginning of, I think, the sense of true advocacy and empowerment as a parent, but also advocacy for my child. Because when I thought about this phenomenon of Evie of having these superpowers, it started off as being a light-hearted sort of a thing. But then I thought about her deeper. I thought about her character, her personality, the things that she was teaching me and everyone around her. Like, she had this incredible joy and a fragility that just drew people towards her. She really did have a magnetism about her. She couldn't speak, she didn't have any words, but we could communicate. I knew what she needed by a single sound and the tone of her voice. And the thing that she said was, ooh. And I knew if it was a hungry ooh, or I just want to go away and do my own thing ooh, or I want to play ooh. It was incredible, just that sense of connection. There's so much connection that goes on between our bodies without words. And I think often the medical profession is almost obsessed with the idea of normal, and we measure everything against normal. And normal has become so thin, and so approximately average, to the point where it's excluding so many incredible humans from that shared space of connection and community. And I think if we can stretch this idea of normal to as far and as wide as it can possibly be, then that is when community can come together, innovation, accessibility, creativity, and true equity. And I think it starts with words, the words we hear. You know, words like retarded, dysmorphic, abnormal, you know, defective, incompetent. These words take ability and potential away. And I wonder if, and in a moment, I think you've all got little pieces of paper, is that right? Yeah? I'm wondering if you can think about your sons. And if you're here with Duchenne yourself, think about yourself. What are the words that you'd use to describe the character and the personality of your sons? I'm going to give you a few moments just to do that. And if you're joining us from live stream, I'm sorry I didn't say hello. Hello to everyone on live stream. Hopefully you've got a little piece of paper as well. Use just a few moments to write down some of the things that would describe your son, the words. How would you describe them? Their character, their personality. And if you don't have a piece of paper, let us know and Nath will give you one. And maybe when you're finished, I don't know how you feel about, shouting out some of the words that you've written down, or if you want Nathan to take your piece of paper and I can read some of these things out. It would be lovely to hear some of the words that you've used to describe yourself or your sons. If you finish, maybe you can raise your hand and we can collect your pieces and I can read them out. Thank you. Alrighty. And just whenever you're ready, just, throw up your hand. Happy. Beautiful. Yeah. We've got here smart, funny, strong, confident. What else have you written down? Curious. Brave. Goofy. Nice. Busy. Caring. I love that. Kind? Yeah, nice.
Love to be involved.
Love to be involved. Awesome. Resilient. Brilliant. I love that one. Competitive? Yeah. Cool. Yeah. What else? Empathetic. Yeah, I've seen that firsthand this morning. Sorry, was it? Did I miss one? No? Andrew. I love this. This is how Andrew would describe himself. I'm very curious to know this, Andrew.
You read that one yet?
Yes. Funny, kind, confident. It's awesome. That's really good writing. It's very neat. Yeah. So what you've described are human traits, human characteristics, human words. And they're often in such stark contrast to the medical words that you'll hear, the disease words, the illness language that is overwhelming at times, right? Like some of the words don't even seem like they're real because it feels like they're from a different language, and it is a different language. Did you know that there's like 50,000 medical words that healthcare professionals have taken 7 years or so to learn? And you're kind of just dumped in the middle of it all. And it can be overwhelming. And I don't know how you felt, but I remember the moment where I felt my brain just turn to absolute mush when the pediatrician was trying to describe what was happening and why I'm okay and Evie's not. It turns out I'm a carrier for what Evie has. And I didn't know this, and so there's a lot of information going on, and there's often abbreviations and MVDSTs and ABDs and whatever, test this and big words that, and it's scary, and you just shut down. And I remember feeling so scared and so overwhelmed that I didn't even know how to ask any questions. Because when you're so overwhelmed like that and your amygdala has shut down, like this is a term that happens. It's not you being stupid or that you don't understand. It's like you actually physically cannot absorb any more information. And when that happens, you just have to time out, go for a walk, take a breath. Your body is done, your brain is done. It's in shock, it's in overwhelm, and it's trying to protect itself. So if you find that during this conference, it's okay. Go and have a seat, go and find someone, go and sit in some grass, go for a swim. Yeah. All of the information that is being shared here doesn't have to be absorbed all at once. You're just learning this new language, and it takes time. It takes a lot of time. And hopefully the healthcare professionals around you can acknowledge that it's going to take time. And maybe you can be brave and say, just give me a little bit more time. Go a little bit slower, please. I'm just learning this new language. I'm just learning this landscape. Some of the words you're using I wouldn't use to describe my son. I would use some of these beautiful words. Can we focus on those words? Because if you're only given words, sorry, my strap's annoying me. If you're only given words or hearing words that are those deficit, subtractive words, you start to believe that that's reality. Your sons might start to believe that that's who they are. But you've clearly described that no, it's not. They're incredible, amazing, funny, kind, confident, smart, funny, strong, resilient, brave, competitive human beings with their own spirits, with their own potential, with their own lives. And I think often the focus can be on a long life. But I think, what if we reframe that even to a thriving life? How can we best support our sons and our families to thrive and to live their best, strongest lives? So it's not so much about fixing anything, because then they might think that they're broken. I remember when I was taking Evie out in the streets, she couldn't walk, so we had a standing frame. And it was a very cool piece of equipment actually, because it gave her independence. She could jump around in it and move around, and I loved receiving this piece of equipment. And even though she wasn't walking, I loved it because she was free. That was my value. It's like, this is freedom. Let's hold on to freedom and independence. But I'd take her down the street, and the first thing that people would say to me was like, what's wrong with your child? What's wrong with her? You know, and initially I'd brace myself and I'd say, well, she's got partial trisomy 9 and partial monosomy 6, and she's got multiple ventricular septal defects, and she can't walk and she can't talk, and she blah, 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 blah. All of the big words, you know, because I'd learned the language by then and it sounded pretty impressive. But, you know, they just glazed over this stranger, glazed over, and then they walked away. And I just had this sinky feeling in my tummy. I'm like, oh, I've just really let my child down. That's not who she is. She's not those things. What are those things? Those aren't even words that describe a human. But with my newfound language of superpowers and this kind of sense of empowerment that I had around describing her differently, the next time someone said, what's wrong with your child? I just said, nothing. Nothing is wrong with her. In fact, she has superpowers. And they kind of looked at me a bit strange. And then they said, well, what do you mean? And then I got to reframe that entire conversation about all of the things that I loved about my child. I said, she loves being on a beanbag. It's the funnest thing in the world, and it makes her laugh, and she's got the cutest laugh. She's so giggly. We make up fun games together. And she's so funny. She's so fun, and she's so lovely to be around. And she's 2.5, and she's never had a tantrum. That's amazing. And then they'd look at her again, and they'd go, oh, isn't she beautiful? Look at those deep, sparkly eyes and those delicate hands. I'm like, yeah, she's really cool. I love being her mum. We just have the best time. And in that moment, because I had described a human being, they saw a human being rather than a collection of failing body parts and something to be afraid of. And so words really matter, because the words that we hear really do impact on the experience that we have and our perception of the future and our landscape. And often we are so afraid of the future, we forget that we're here right now. So we can plan for the future, but living right in this moment is all we can do. And that's something that I'm so grateful for Evie. She taught me just to live in each moment and each day. To the point now where I actually find it very difficult to plan for the future. So it's, you know, but that's fine, I guess, too. Yeah. I don't know what time it is, Pat, or how I'm going. I'm really sorry. You got 5. 5 more minutes. 5 minutes, beautiful. So I guess I have some encouragement for you. I've been talking to some of the mums that have been here a few times, and they said, you know, on my first conference, or on our first conference, they said, I wasn't even present. I can't even remember the first conference I went to because I was so overwhelmed, and I was trying to absorb everything, and I was trying to fix everything. I was in this space of, this can't be happening. I've got to fix it. What can I do? And they said, I can't even remember it. It's all a blur now. I've become much kinder in retrospect. I wish I'd kind of just learned a few things and talked to more parents and sat by the pool, you know? So my encouragement is to you is to look after yourselves, look after each other, meet other families. This is the power of this community. It is a very incredible, very special, very precious community, full of support and full of help. And while things might not be fixed, you can enjoy each moment. Yeah. Think about the word thrive. Think about what that means, what that looks like. Think about all the things that your sons love to do, who they are, and then think about what therapies might support that. Yeah. And if you find yourself with your brain turning to mush, that's all good. That's all good. It's not you. It's your brain just saying, we're done here. We've received too much information. Go and sit by the pool. Go and have a chat. Go and have a cry. Go and find someone to cuddle. Yeah. I'll be around all week as well if you have any questions. I'm going to be doing another talk tomorrow which goes more into some of the stuff that we're talking about. But hopefully this has been a nice, gentle way to start into today's session. I can't wait to hear more about your sons and to meet more of you in person. But I'll hand back over to Rachel. Is that right? Yeah? Thank you, everyone. We'll see you around.